the Beyond Vietnam speech.
Absolutely. And Paul, in a recent article you wrote on Patheos, you had talked about how Joshua, in his conquest of Canaan, comes face to face with the general of the Lord's army, and he asks the Lord's general, whose side are you on?
Right.
And the general says, I'm on God's side. And so that sits perfectly for us in regards to patriotism, militarism, and what we're calling partisan pietism.
Yeah, partisan pietism.
And so frame that for us. If God's general says he's neither on the Canaanite side or Joshua's side, but he's on God's side, and the Israelites are God's people, what are the implications for that for patriotism? What are the implications for militarism? Could you unpack that?
Again, if we think of Dr. King, when he talks about critiquing the Vietnam War, again, he's not out to critique soldiers. He's not out to critique people who are laying down their lives. He's talking about the structures, what he takes to be structures of evil, with racism, economic exploitation, and militarism. And we'll, again, talk about militarism. That's what he's after. He's not out to attack the soldiers. King doesn't go out looking to attack people. You know, he saw people not as things, but as persons, and having inalienable rights and indescribable dignity that could never be contained under a construct. But when we think of King in that message talking about, ultimately, I'm on God's side, the captain of the Lord's army says to Joshua, I'm not on your side or those of Jericho's side and the Canaanite side. I am the captain of the Lord's army. I speak for God. And as the captain of the Lord's army, Joshua 5, take off your sandals, this is holy ground. Right. And so, Joshua has to come clean before God. We have to come clean before God. And for King, for him, the moral arc of the universe is long, he says in that sermon on the Vietnam War, but it bends toward justice. Mm-hmm. King believed that rights and truth and justice were inherent to the universe. Right. Some say he was a big advocate of virtue ethics, about the person being ethical, virtuous. Others say he was into natural law, divine decree, whatever you want to call it. But when we think about natural law, it's inherent. And a lot of people today think, no, ethics, morality, that's all subjective. It's human creation. That wasn't King's view. It was inherent. So for him, when he's speaking out about the Vietnam War, it's like, I'm not speaking out ultimately to affirm America or the Vietnamese and to take sides on this issue. He says, ultimately, I speak as someone seeking to be a prophet of the Lord, a prophetic voice, knowing that he himself is not perfect, but truth and ethics and justice is beyond any one nation. And so we have to say, ultimately, for ourselves, I'm not for this country, or God is not on our side. The question is, are we on God's side in any particular conflict? And that's for America, that's for Iran, that's for Vietnam, that's for England. I could just go through the list. Absolutely. Whose side are we on? And that was what Joshua was being asked, ultimately by the captain of the Lord's army. Whose side are you on, Joshua? And who are we on the side of? And God is for the orphan, the widow, and alien in their distress. Are we for them? And that's something the King was after in that speech when he deals not only with militarism, but economic exploitation of the poor and racism, that those structures were well entrenched in our society, weren't going away, especially with all the money we were pouring into the war. It was going to take away, with the building of that industrial military complex, from concerns for the most marginalized in our society.
And so for Christ followers, that has profound implications for our patriotism.